Hey, welcome back to Student of the Gun Radio. I am your host, Professor Paul Markle, and in the studio with me, of course, as always, is Jared, the producer.
Everything.
Producer with the mostest.
The producer with the product or something. I don't know.
Yeah, with the mostest. No, Jared is he's my studio engineer. He's the producer of the show, and he's also the co-host, as you should know. But if you're brand new to Student of the Gun, welcome. And I'm going to warn you. I'm going to advise you. If this is the first time you're tuning in, just take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And listen.
Strap in your seatbelt because this is going to be a ride. This episode.
This is not what you're going to expect.
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep Dad on the chain here.
On the PG chain.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely do that because I have to. Mm. But it's going to be hard.
Wow. The topic of today's show is, wow. I don't even. It's so maddening. But and the reason that we're just talking about it now and not last Friday or Thursday or even on Monday is because, quite frankly, folks, I needed time to compose myself. The stupidity is so thick and rampant that I didn't think I could come to the microphone and not go pretty far off the chain. But before we get into the topic of today, I want to take a moment to thank my friend Sonny Pazikas for joining us yesterday. We hope you guys enjoyed that. And specifically, I hope that you folks out there, guys and girls, who were familiar with the story that led into that whole reenactment scenario, where basically the big news media took it and ran with it. Then they said, see, guns don't make a difference. Oh, we're glad that we were able to break that down for you and kind of give you a realistic understanding of what went down and what you can expect. So thank you to Sonny for doing that. And Sonny, I asked him to give his background, and he modestly did not mention the fact that he was Soviet Special Forces. He was in the Spetsnaz. And I can tell you this, I knew that Sonny was the real deal when I was working with him. And this was probably, if you go back and look at your history, it was probably the year 2000, I believe, that the jihadists, the Johnny Jihads of the world, it might have been 2001, I don't remember. But anyway, when Daniel Pearl, the reporter from, I believe it was the Wall Street Journal, when he was captured by jihadist goat rapists, and they threatened and blah, 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 blah. And they took pictures of him and threatened to execute him if people didn't, I don't even know what their demands were, it doesn't matter. But when that was going on, Sonny and I were working together. We were on a protection detail. And he said, this is what's going to happen. He said, they're going to play this game for about 4 to 6 weeks. They're going to make demands and so forth. He goes, then they're going to take a knife and they're going to saw his head off on videotape. Then they'll release the videotape and issue further demands and threats and so forth. And that's what's going to happen. And I looked at him, I'm like, okay, bro, whatever. And everything he said, said that they were going to do, they did that almost as if on script. And that's when I knew, I was like, I need to pay attention to what this dude is saying. When I was in the U.S. Marines fighting the Cold War for USA, Sonny was in the Russian Army Spetsnaz, and he was spending his time in all the Ikistans, all these fringe members of the Soviet Union, all the Uzbekistans and Kurdistans and thisistan and thatistan, he was dealing with the goat rapists when we were dealing with the Cold War. And he is very, very familiar with Islamic Jihad and everything that goes with it. And so when it comes to knowing the mind of the Islamic terrorists and what they're all about, he's very, very familiar with that. He knows what's going on with the Chechens and what have you. And Sonny was actually the person that explained to me. I asked him about the Chechen separatists. And if you guys are my age, you remember back in the 90s and into the 2000s, the U.S. media always referred to the Chechen Islamic terrorists. Never once did they mention, oh, by the way, these these Chechens, that they're all jihadists, they're all Muslim, they're all Islamic. They never, ever, ever mention that in print, even though it was a fact. They always refer to them as Chechen separatists and Chechen freedom fighters and those who are fighting for the independence of Chechnya. And they basically tried to portray them as these, all they want is independence and freedom and liberty. No, they were jihadists. They were Islamic terrorists. But your news media would never say it out loud. And I asked Sonny, I said, what is the deal with these Chechen separatists? And he schooled me on it. And like many people that are in special operations, just because you leave active duty doesn't mean you don't still know what's going on in the community. And Sonny, if you guys know SEALs or SF guys or anybody who's in the community, even though they're not attached to that unit, they still have friends in that unit. They still know what's going on. And he was no different. Even though he was no longer active duty Spetsnaz, he still had friends and companions and compatriots that were. And he would get the back channel messages and information from the active duty Spetsnaz. And he told me, he laid it down. And when the Chechen separatists took over the movie theater in Moscow and took all those hostages, and Spetsnaz went in and dealt a severe blow to them and did what they needed to do to them. And everyone in America was like, "Oh, they shouldn't have done that. They used chemicals to paralyze the people, and the innocent civilians were paralyzed and they couldn't move." Yeah, but you know who else was? Jared, do you know about that? You don't remember because you were too young. Yeah, but guess who else was paralyzed and couldn't move? The Chechen separatists. And guess who had to just lay there staring up at the ceiling as the Spetsnaz guys walked in and gave them their final kiss goodbye? Yeah, that was them. And everyone in the world is like, "Oh, you need to tell us what specific gas you used so that we can prepare antidotes for us." And the Russians like, let me think about that for a second. No, we're not going to do that because you people are weak. And here's the deal. They were smart enough to know, I know there are enemies, there are arch nemesis, but they were smart enough to know if they released that, then the info would get to the terrorists, and then they would be able to develop antidotes or vaccines or defenses against that. And they're like, "No, sorry, it's not going to happen. Too bad. Go pound sand." So, yeah, Sonny, I knew when I started working with him, based upon my own military experience and hearing him talk, and when he laid out the whole Daniel Pearl thing, I'm like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. But thank you to Sonny for spending some time with us. Now let's go ahead and do our sponsor recognition, and then we'll jump into the meat of this. I think I'm ready to do it, Jared.
Are you ready?
I think I'm calm enough. I've just in case I have my emergency. What are we calling this guy? The stress relief shaky doll that I got for Christmas from my lovely wife.
You should give him a name.
We should come up with a name for the stress relief shaky doll. You want to do a Facebook contest? Come up with a name for the stress relief shaky doll?
Yeah, we'll do that. I'll post a picture of him on Facebook and say, "Hey, what's this dude's name?"
What are we going to call this
or
thing?
Chick.
It's one of those TY dealios, and it has a tag name, but my lovely wife gave it to me. She said, when you get frustrated, just shake this, and it'll make you feel better.
Yeah, if you look at our Instagram, I posted a video and a picture on last Friday. So just check that out, Instagram.com/studentofthegun.
There you go. All right, let's sponsors. Who are they? Well, they're SWAT Fuel, SWATfuel.com. And if you guys, if you follow us, you should. You know that we just did the SWAT Fuel Challenge. We did the Get Fit in 2015 Challenge. We gave away, thanks to Dr. Dan at SWAT Fuel, a whole bunch of free product to help you guys get inspired and motivated to have healthy bodies so that you have healthy minds and healthy, strong brains. Because students of the gun need healthy minds, and a healthy body leads to a healthy mind. And that's what you've got to have. It's not an option, it's a requirement. So if you're hip, if you're down, if you're thinking, that sounds like a good deal, I'm going to go over to SWATfuel.com. Make sure that you use the promo code SOTG2014. I know it's not 2014 anymore, but that's the promo code. And if you use that promo code, you're going to save 20% off your total order, and that is righteous. Don't forget about XS Sites, the sponsors of the Good Guy of the Week. They are the fastest sites in any light, XSSites.com. And congratulations to XS Sites for getting themselves into the Battlefield Hardline video game. We're eagerly looking forward to that coming out so we can play it and check it out and equip our guns with XS Express sights.
Are we going to talk about sometime this week? Are we going to talk about what we did on last Thursday night?
Oh, about the Force on Force?
Yeah, are we going to?
Yeah, we can do that.
Well, I just wanted to say while we're on the topic of XS Sites, they handed me a trainer gun, a blue
Glock. It's a 17T.
Yeah, and I got stuck in a dark corner, and I looked down the sights, and I was like, man, I don't have XS sights. I can't see my sights. I was disappointed because my carry gun obviously has XS sights on it, so that's what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And I pulled it up there in front of my face in the dark, and I couldn't see anything. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Well, and it's not just complete darkness. It's that the white to gray to black scenario where you have your back lit or your front lit, or you have hard shadows to the side, or you have half light, or let's say the hallway's lit but it's only lit because there's a light at the far end, that kind of a deal, or there's light coming through a window, all these different light conditions. And that's why XS sights are the fastest sights, not just in the dark, not just in the day, but in any light. And yeah, you learn to appreciate them. You don't appreciate XS sights if you go to the range on a sunny Sunday afternoon, plant your feet, and just pop off targets or pop off rounds at a paper target. You learn to appreciate XS sights when you actually have to shoot in poor light conditions, in a hurry, from your back, sideways, whatever. So check those out. We also want to remember to mention our friends at Velocity Triggers. Velocity Triggers is a relatively new company. They make drop-in AR-15 match-grade triggers. They have several styles and designs for which you can choose from. So go over there to velocitytriggers.com and give them a like on their Facebook page. And last but certainly not least, we want to talk about Brownells at brownells.com. If you own a gun, Brownells has something for you. That's the bottom line. They got ammo, they got parts, they got accessories, they got thises and that's and all that jazz. And if you haven't checked out the Brownells website lately, you want to go over there and do that because they actually have upgraded and modified it a little bit. And they've added a bunch of new products. And now that the great panic of 2013/14 is over with, there's a lot of stuff that's in stock now that wasn't in stock a year and a half ago. So take the time and do that. All right, the alternative. Da, 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 da. What is the alternative? Well, the alternative is, this is where I just get stuck in the don't say bad words. The alternative is essentially the answer to a made-up or contrived problem. This is the answer to a problem that doesn't exist or exists only in the minds of hippies, liberals, douchebags that have no clue or understanding what deadly force scenarios are all about.
Ignorant people, basically.
Yes, people that are ignorant and people that have agendas. Okay, all this horse nonsense that's going on in the United States of America is driven by people with agendas. People that, and when you see the Ferguson deal and all that, you have to ask yourself, step back and say, who benefits from all this acrimony? Who benefits from keeping the people riled up, keeping the people angry at each other, keeping the people separate, dividing them into opposing groups? Who benefits from that? And when you ask that question, you answer it honestly to yourself, then you'll have an understanding of why it is going on. Let's talk about deadly force. First of all, if you're a dedicated student of the gun, you'll know this, and it's just going to be a refresher for you. But we know there are a lot of people out there in the audience today and every week that weren't here a month ago or weren't here 6 months ago. So deadly force. Deadly force, what is the legal definition of deadly force? It's death or serious bodily harm. Now, we know what death is. It's assuming room temperature, no longer being alive. Pretty simple, right?
And this here is kind of a freebie from the Armed Living DVD. If you've already got the DVD, you've obviously already heard this speech from him. But if you don't have it and you want to get more in detail on this topic and many more topics, You go to studentofthegun.com and click on the little gear tab. It'll take you over there. Get the DVD for yourself. It's 45 minutes of packed. It's packed with information.
Yeah. Information that if you're going to be an armed citizen, you really need to possess. You need to have more than a gun, ammo, and a holster. You need to have information, intelligence, and skill.
And one more thing.
All right,
if
go
you
ahead.
did get the DVD and you've watched it, and if you haven't watched it yet, shame on you. But if you have the DVD and you've watched it, go to the store and leave a review, please. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw Jared a little attaboy. He did a lot of work behind the scenes, and he updated the gear store. I think it looks way better now than it did. I think it's going to be easier for you guys to use. If you haven't checked it out, if you haven't checked out the studentofthegungear.com or clicked on the gear tab on the main page, go over there and take a look at it. It's better than it was. And it's not just the DVD, but there's a DVD, the books, the gear, all the fun stuff, and then also the training as well. So check that out. But let's talk about death or serious bodily harm. Death is no longer being alive, room temperature. Okay, we got that. But what is serious bodily harm? You say, well, is serious bodily harm? Well, serious bodily harm to many people in America, Jared, is reading a Facebook post that hurts their feelings. Some people think that's serious bodily harm.
I would say that's not bodily harm. That's mental harm.
My feelings were hurt. But if you're not a metrosexual, and serious bodily harm is this: any injury that requires prolonged hospitalization, rehabilitation, permanent disfigurement, and or scarring. Okay? So you say, all right, well, by that definition, if I walked up to you on the street and I said, you're stupid, and I smack you in the face with an open palm, is that going to require hospitalization, rehabilitation, permanent scarring? It might hurt your feelings, but you're going to get over it. But if I take a baseball bat and I smash your kneecaps, this is one that we use all the time, are you going to die from me smashing you in the legs or the kneecaps with a baseball bat? Well, no, you probably won't die. But will you require hospitalization? Possibly yes. Rehabilitation? Possible permanent disfigurement or scarring? Well, yes. So that is death or serious bodily harm. And in order to use deadly force legally, you have to have the three following criteria need to be met. And you got to check these off in your mind real quick, fast, in a hurry. Is the person, do they have the opportunity to use serious deadly force against you? The person who's attacking you, do they have the opportunity? Well, yeah, I'm here, they're here. He has a gun. I can see him. He can see me. He has the opportunity. Ability. What is the ability? Now, does a person have the ability to do deadly force harm to me? Do they possess a firearm? Do they possess an edged weapon, a machete, a knife, a meat cleaver, a claw hammer, a lead pipe, whatever? Okay, yes. Is it 2 or 3 individuals against a single person? Even though their hands might be empty, the courts have recognized through judicial precedent over and over and over again that 2 or 3 people, although they may be technically unarmed, can do deadly force or serious bodily harm to a lone protector. Is there a disparity of force? Is the defender a 64-year-old man, or is it a 28-year-old woman who's 90 pounds and an 18-year-old man who's 250 pounds? Do the courts expect that a 90-pound woman is going to go mano a mano with a large, physically fit, strong male? No. Do they expect that someone who, let's say, has a physical infirmity, you can't run away because you can't run? And do they expect that person to go to duke it out with a cracked up 18-year-old? Well, no, they don't expect that. And so they allow you to use a greater than normal amount of force. That's called disparity of force. So we understand all these things. And then we have to go into, well, what is the opposite or the yin to the yang of deadly force? And that would be less than lethal force. We understand that not every person that we encounter, not every bad guy, not every aggressor can legally and justifiably be shot, killed, whatever. They cannot have deadly force applied to them. Okay, what are those situations? Well, obviously they're the situations where the person does not possess a weapon, a firearm, a knife, a bat, or whatever. that they have to be dealt with. We can't just ignore this person. He's not going to be ignored. They are not going to be ignored. But so we have to do something, but we have to do something that is not deadly. And so rather than, punching people or getting into fisticuffs with them, well, what have we done? Well, as a society, as a race of humans, we've come up with things, tools to use. And the oldest tool in the world is the baton, is the stick. Hickory batons. And before that, they had cudgels and what have you. Man has been hitting other men with sticks for, I don't know, since man could walk upright and pick up a stick. And what we did is we got all fancy and we put them on lathes and we put grips on them and so forth. And, we went from hickory batons to polycarbonate batons to aluminum batons and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, we hit each other with sticks. All right. Well, then we got all fancy back in the 1960s and 70s. We started using tear gas on crowds. And someone said, well, what if we took the tear gas and we put it in a little can and we sprayed people with it? And they came up with something called mace. Now, mace is a trade name like Kleenex or Band-Aid. And all that is the trademark name or a brand name for basically liquid tear gas. It's a lacrimator. It makes you cry. Then somewhere in the 1980s, they decided to come up with the handheld stun gun. Everybody knows what those are, and they're worthless as nipples on a boar hog, okay? Handheld stun guns are worthless. They're pointless. Don't buy them. Don't give them to people that you care about. So then we move on to, now in the interim, while this is all going on, the taser was developed, but the taser originally used a propellant powder to shoot out the darts, and so it was classified as a firearm. And they were law enforcement only items. Only cops could buy them, and they were classified as firearms. Well, we have pepper spray. Pepper spray is very, very effective. It works very well as a less than lethal force option. You don't use pepper spray on people with guns or people with big baseball bats that are trying to cave your head in unless that's the only thing you have. And if somebody has a machete and you only have pepper spray, you are on the low end of the totem pole. Well, then we come up with, after the Rodney King incident, and everyone's like, tasers don't work or they're no good or this model is bad. They went back to the drawing board and they came up with the Taser X26. And the X26 Taser is the top of the line right now. I know there's a lot of different variations. They have different cartridges with different lengths of cords and so forth. But basically, the Taser X26 is the one that you're going to see the most. Most of your deputies and police officers that you see on the street, they have a Taser X26. And the Taser X26 was supposed to be the miracle cure for all things less than lethal, right? We're not going to have to hit people with sticks anymore. We're not going to have to spray them with that vicious liquid that makes their skin burn and their eyes water and they cry like little babies on the ground. We're not going to have to do any of that stuff now. The magic of the taser, it's going to, fix everything. And then, of course, they have specialty items that you use in corrections facilities and riot facilities like baton rounds that you shoot out of 37 and 40 millimeter launchers. You have specialty shotgun rounds, these beanbag rounds, which basically they took a sock, a little tiny sock, filled it with lead shot, and you shoot it at people and it hurts them. You have all these different specialty rounds. But for the on-the-street cop, you start out with hickory batons, mace, handheld stun guns, pepper spray, and tasers. And those are all of your options for less than lethal. Well, apparently, we don't have enough options for less than lethal. Apparently, we need even more options for less than lethal. We need to add something else to the mix because I'm guessing that the local patrolman just doesn't have enough stuff on his belt already. He needs one more thing to add to his belt. Now, as I take a deep breath here, folks, I've been around long enough. I've been playing this game for going on 3 decades now. I was, if you know the show, I was a United States Marine, a police officer. I've worked as a professional bodyguard, all that jazz. I've been there. I've done that. I've gotten the T-shirt. And every time we as good guys, as uniformed good guys, as whether it's police officers or whatever, we come up with a new tool that's designed for less than lethal. They came up with the mace because, here's what we'll be able to do with the mace. Rather than hitting people with these hickory batons, smacking them in the legs and the arms and the shoulders and what have you, rather than doing that, we'll just be able to pull out this can and spray them, and then they'll submit, and we can handcuff them and, yada, yada. Well, mace really didn't work. It was junk. And then they're like, okay, well, we're not going to use that mace stuff anymore. We're going to use these handheld stun guns. So now we'll go up to the bad guy and we'll contact stun him and we'll arrest him, and we won't have to hit him with sticks anymore. Well, how many of you are old enough to remember the protests over police using mace? Mace burns and toxicology, and then people supposedly choked to death and died from being exposed to mace. They're like, well, we got to be careful. We can't just let these cops be using mace all the time because it might, there's problems with that. It's like, okay, well, we'll pull that back. Well, then they come out with handheld stun guns, and the left wing and the news media, they come out and Jared, do you know that the antis and the left wing ninnies were calling handheld stun guns rape tools? That supposedly that bad people were going to get a hold of these handheld stun guns, and they were going to use them to disable women or to subdue women to rape them with stun guns. Jared, does a handheld stun gun knock you unconscious?
Nope.
See,
that's the ignorance aspect of it. They don't know how it works, so they go on assumption. Same thing with this.
They saw it in a movie that they put a handheld stun gun to the and the guy goes, oh, and he passes out.
If movies were realistic, movies would be boring.
Yeah. People do not lose consciousness from a handheld stun gun being applied to them. People do not lose consciousness from a taser being applied to them. People get shot with tasers. They don't go unconscious. That's one of the things that drives me absolutely bananas. All these Hollywood movies, people get tasered and they pass out. They don't, folks. But hippie liberal idiots think that they do. So the hippie liberal idiots had problems with handheld stun guns. Can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. Okay, well, we won't use those anymore because they don't really work anyway, so we're going to stop using them. They come out with pepper spray back in the early 90s and throughout the entire decade of the 90s into the 2000s. So what does the ACLU do, Jared? The ACLU and all the ACLU-like organizations come out and they protest pepper spray because it's cruel and unusual, and it inflicts a greater than normal or needed amount of pain. And police officers are using it indiscriminately. And quite frankly, they might be using it indiscriminately now in 2015, but that's a topic for another day. But they wanted cops to stop using pepper spray because it was cruel and unusual. And da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay. So okay, well, will it make you happy if we go to the X26 taser, we stop spraying people, we stop hitting them with sticks, we're going to use tasers, and that's going to, be nice. Well, no. As soon as the taser became popular, what did we start getting? Lawsuits against police departments for, overuse of the taser, blah, 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 blah. You've seen it, Jared. You've read the articles and what have you. ACLU and the American, it's basically the American Criminals Liability Union or Criminal Liberty Union. So they never come out in favor of like the honest, law-abiding citizen who's being victimized. It's always the scumbag. Sorry, but it's true. So they're like, well, they don't like tasers anymore. Oh, tasers, they're overused and misused and blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you what, folks. Here's the reality of it. If it wasn't for the X26 taser, there's a lot of criminals, felons, and recidivist douche nozzles that are walking around sucking up good oxygen today that 20 years ago would have been worm food. That if it were not for the X26 taser, these people would have been ventilated, bagged up, and then disposed of. There's a lot of bad people in the world that are still walking around mercifully because of the X26 taser that in 1984 would have just been shot. In 1994 would have just been shot. They're tasering people that were, they really, and that is the problem, Jared. We've spoiled the American populace into thinking that we have this zero defect or zero error issue with deadly force situations where, well, he only had a knife, so you shouldn't shoot him. You should just taser him until that doesn't work. So here we go. I give you, and you say, why do you give me this whole entire history? Well, I'm giving you the whole history because there's a company in California that has come up with a product called the Alternative. And it is a device that you put on a live firearm to make it not a lethal force instrument, kind of. And they've got a video out there. Jared's going to play the video for you right now. And it's a kind of a promo video for this Alternative. This is their promo that they're using to pimp the product.
Here's a standard weapon.
Good bass
The
groove.
Alternative, within seconds, is easily mounted to the top of the weapon. There's no obstruction to the sight picture for the operator, and there's no obstruction to the functionality of the weapon or the rail system. It still allows an officer the ability to attach a flashlight on their weapon. Once the weapon is fired, the bullet travels down the barrel, embedding itself inside the alloy projectile with no chance of escaping, instantly becoming one solid unit. The projectile immediately separates from the weapon, as the docking unit is instantly ejected. Then, a new bullet is cycled in for follow-up shots if necessary.
It's a cartridge.
The Alternative is as accurate as the operator using it. Once the projectile impacts the threat, it will send a shockwave of pain to the suspect without the internal damage that a penetrating bullet would cause. And now, here's a simulation of police training and when to utilize the Alternative.
They do like this little video game thing where they're like at a Hogan's Alley and they show how you're supposed to do it. Listen up to what they want you to do.
That's a dude popped up with a gun.
Pop,
There's
pop, pop.
a dude coming out of a doorway with a knife.
Big knife, charging.
Drop it! Drop it! Less lethal! Less lethal!
All right, that's about enough of that. I wanted you guys to hear how many cops I have in the audience? How many law enforcement officers? You're supposed to be taught now.
Raise your hands.
Yeah, raise your hand. Okay, you can put your hand down now. So now we're supposed to pull this orange clown nose thing out of a belt. We're supposed to draw your weapon, point it at the target. So you got a guy charging you with a knife. He comes around a corner, or he pulls out a knife and he's charging you. You're supposed to reach down, draw your weapon, point it at him, tell him to stop it, and then reach with your left hand or your alternate hand, grab this orange clown nose thing that's made out of aluminum or whatever. It's a big ball. Put it on your gun, and then shoot him. Yell while you're screaming, less lethal, shoot him with this orange ball. And all of you guys out there that have actually been trained, you're like, what? I'm sorry? Squeeze me? I had some stupid in my ear right there. Let me say that again. Well, that doesn't stop there. So, of course, all the ignorant people of the world who have absolutely no idea what deadly force encounters are all about and what they entail, or even when it's legal to use deadly force and when it's not, they think this is great. So you got your New York Times type people, your Yahoo News people, your all these other knuckleheads that they're excited about this option. Now we don't have to shoot felons and bad people and people that are trying to kill police officers with knives or smash their faces into the ground, or you don't have to kill those people. And what we've got here is Jared, go ahead and pull up clip number 1 for me. This is a news report, and they're talking, it's a reporter, and he's all excited about this new Alternative device, and he talks to the designer. And I want you to listen up to what is said and how it's being said.
The invention is called the Alternative. It's violent, it's dangerous, it's even potentially lethal. But when it comes down to a dangerous confrontation between a police officer and a suspect, it might be the only thing that could save that suspect's life.
Why?
It's a blast of vicious steel, akin to getting hit by a hammer that Barry Bonds was swinging. But the creators say the Alternative doesn't puncture.
They will be hurt, but they will be alive. So
That's
all
the
we're trying to
designer.
do is make that bullet safer and bridge the gap in lethal force and give them another option.
The Alternative round is sometimes referred to as a second chance bullet. And
Sometimes
in the case
by
of
who?
shooting like Michael Brown, an officer could make a history-altering decision.
He could have possibly utilized this technology, and in that case, his intent would have been to stop him with another option besides a bullet.
This device is being shipped to the Ferguson Police Department first, and their officers are...
All right, let's go ahead and address this real quick. This guy, this designer, is the worst kind of opportunist pimp scumbag in the world. Wow, that's pretty harsh language, isn't it, Paul? Yeah, it is harsh language. Because this guy is an idiot. He is an absolute imbecile. We're trying to bridge the gap between less than lethal and lethal force. There's no gap to bridge, you moron.
There's already a bridge there.
We already have the bridge. It's called pepper spray. It's called the X26 taser. There's all kinds of stuff that cops can do other than shooting people. And they're like, it's called the second chance bullet. What the heck are you talking about? They said what did the reporter say? It's dangerous, it's vicious, it's violent. It may even be lethal. All right, stop, moron. If it may even be lethal, then you cannot legally use this in a less than lethal force situation. Do you understand that? That if the situation has not risen to the point where deadly force is authorized and you shoot someone, is the Glock or SIG or whatever Smith & Wesson M&P that you put this thing on and you're pointing it at the bad guy, is that thing no longer a firearm because you put this orange clown nose on it? It's still a firearm, and the rules of deadly force still apply. And you're like, well, it's a police officer, and the rules are different for police officers than other people. No, they're not, folks. They're not exempt. They don't get to, like, special, well, we can kill the citizens because we're cops, but citizens can't do that because they don't have polyester uniforms. No. Police officers are duty-bound to protect the community as a whole, not as individuals, but they don't have special, we can execute the public powers. They can't use deadly force in any situation that you couldn't use deadly force. So let's say you have a situation that's not lethal, and you pull this thing out, and you shoot this clown nose at the person, and it hits them in the face, in the throat, in the whatever, crushes their trachea, crushes their infraorbital, and you say, well, they don't die. What if I shoot you in the face with this, and it crushes your freaking your orbital bones there, and it blinds you in your left eye? Well, you're not dead. Would that be death and/or serious bodily harm? If I blind you in the left eye by shooting this big orange, this aluminum clown nose thing into your face, is that not deadly force? Well, by the legal definition, it absolutely is. What if I shoot you in the chest, break your sternum breaks off and punctures a lung, and they got to take you in and do emergency open heart or open chest surgery? Is that deadly force? Yeah, it's deadly force. So you're saying, but in a situation like this, then you're using it in a deadly force situation, not a less than lethal situation. Hey, dummy, if the situation has escalated to the point where deadly force is authorized, why are you wasting time, precious, valuable seconds? And remember we talked about, life and death in seconds? We talked about that yesterday, did we not, Jared? About how lethal force encounters are measured in fractions of seconds?
Yep. So what I want you, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go for it.
Okay. What I want you guys to do, if you can hear my voice, I want you to search and find an officer-involved shooting that the officer only shot one bullet. Find that and post it to the Student of the Guns Facebook page.
Yeah.
I want to know how many there are. Because I searched.
I'm sure there are some.
There are some, but it was hard for me to find.
Oh, if... It's very rare that a handgun bullet will stop a human being with one shot. Very, very rare.
Right.
It does happen, but not very often.
Well, this dude that designed this thing is using the Michael Brown Ferguson as an example. That cop shot more than one bullet.
And he had to. Why did he have to shoot? Well, here's the deal with the Brown deal. It's been examined by a grand jury in Missouri, and they found no true bill, no reason to indict. It's been examined by the Federal Justice Department. There's a joke. There's a joke if ever I heard one. The Department of Justice in the federal government. They examined it, and even though they are agenda driven and they absolutely wanted to find something, even their left-wing hardcore communist agenda, they couldn't come up with reason to charge this guy. So there's nothing there. This is a and they're like, in the case of Michael Brown, this may have horse crap. There is absolutely no way that you can convince me that what would have had to happen is the officer involved would have had to, before any of this started, before Brown charged him, before he tackled him, before they wrestled in the car, before he got out of the car, before he turned around to come back and attack him again, he would have had to get out of the car, say, hey, you kids, drew his gun, pulled the clown nose out, and put it on his gun, and then prepared himself to shoot him before anything happened. Well, guess what? It wouldn't have been justified then. He would not have been justified in drawing his gun and pointing at him until the situation materialized. Folks, this is horrible. And they're like, well, and now they're basically using the PR, they're using negative PR to force this crap on Ferguson. Well, Ferguson PD is testing and evaluating this right now. Jared, go ahead and pull clip 2, and I want you to hear the logic and the thought process that this tool from The Alternative, this is what he thinks.
Bring that number down.
Just because somebody's having a bad day or they're mentally unstable does not mean they necessarily deserve to die. And I think most police officers would agree with that. Nobody wants to have to take somebody's life.
Alternative Ballistics says if you ever see
we're all done. We're all done with this idiot. So he says, quote, just because somebody is having a bad day, they don't deserve to lose their life. A bad day is like not finding a parking space.
I would say I agree with that statement.
Yeah.
That if somebody's just having a bad day, they don't deserve to lose their life.
But if you think having a bad day is attempting to beat a police officer to death, I don't think that's a bad day. That's felonious behavior. That's attempted murder. That's aggravated assault. I come out of a building and I stab a bunch of people and come running out into the parking lot, and you're standing there, officer friendly, and I'm just having a bad day. You have to take the time to pull this orange clown nose out and put it on your Glock and then, yell, less lethal, less lethal, less lethal, before you shoot me. This guy is a moron, and he has absolutely no idea what deadly force scenarios are all about. He's trying to make a buck. He developed this stupidity, and he's trying to cash in. Now, cops out there, how many times when you train do you train to fire one shot and one shot only? Never. Hey, Jared, you shot me yesterday. Not yesterday. You shot me Thursday night with a Sims gun. How many times did you shoot me in three? You shot me three times?
Yeah, three before I realized it was you.
Before, yeah, and that's a different scenario. But he fired 3 rounds in like, what, a half, 3/4 of a second or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is even if you shoot them with this clown nose thing, they're not going to be, it's still just a clown nose. They're not going to be lifted off of their feet and then like be careening backwards through the air. Folks, The Alternative is an answer to a made-up, contrived problem. We have alternatives to deadly force. And in the Michael Brown case, deadly force was the absolute 100% appropriate tool. And this case has been examined and looked at over and over and over and over and over again, and they still can't come up with reason to convict or to come up with charges. Just because it hurts your feelings, just because you don't think it was nice, it doesn't matter. Deadly force is ugly. It's not pretty. And what we have to say is, why was the deadly force necessary? Oh, because someone was having a bad day. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I did a pretty good job keeping
yeah, you did very well.
Restrained myself. As stupid and horrible and dangerous as this is, and I'm going to go ahead and leave you with one last thing. If a police agency adopts, quote-unquote, the alternative, if one is stupid enough to adopt it, and it is actually ever used on the street, I got $1,000 on this table that says, within a day after that being used, some ACLU lawyer is going to sue the city for unlawful use of force or gross negligence or something like that. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to say, oh, good, we're happy with you now. No. They're going to shoot somebody with it. It's going to screw them up really bad. It's going to break bones or contusions or whatever. And they're going to claim that it was cruel and unusual, just like the taser and pepper spray and stun guns and everything else. They're not going to be happy until we say, you know what? Let's just let all the criminals and scumbags and pieces of human filth, let's just let them do whatever they want. Let's let them steal, rob, rape, take property from people, beat people, because that's the nice thing to do. We don't want to hurt their feelings. All right, folks, we got a whole lot more for you this week. Make sure that you tune in tomorrow on Wednesday. Let me check my show notes. Looks like we got a 911 reality check tomorrow. That should be interesting. And SWAT Fuel Fitness Talk, too. So make sure that you tune in tomorrow, Wednesday. Until then, remember, you're a beginner once, but you should be a student for life.